What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again. And this time we are here with Don of Evoken and Adversvm. Thank you so much for being here. It is great to have you here, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. Your new album, Vama Marga, it's out now, and this record is absolutely kick ass. Were you sort of like continuing in a similar vein of what we heard off of the first two Adversvm records, or was this meant to sort of like step into uncharted territory and kind of explore new ideas?
Well, Alex, I just joined the band like within the last year, so I can only go by what Sasha told me and what he said in interviews. And I think they may have been looking for another direction a little bit. Like it's still in the same vein, but adding a little maybe more atmosphere to it. And I think that's when they reached out to me to see if I would be like a fit for them. And I think it worked. I think we work well together. So it was actually, I think it worked out. So yeah. So I've said in interviews that I've been a fan of them, and I've been listening to them for years now. And it took me by surprise when Sasha reached out to me, and he said, "Would you like to be our keyboardist?" And I said, "Sure, I'll give it a try. I hope I can live up to what you what you want." And I'm glad he reached out because we seem to have a good working relationship, and we're on the same plane with this stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, you led me perfectly into the next question, actually, and that was being that this is your first record with the band. Was there sort of like a preconceived vision of what you and Sasha and everybody like had in mind in a way, or were you kind of with you jumping on board? There was some more room for like experimentation, and you were kind of given full range to bring your own mix into Adversvm.
Well, they definitely gave me free reign of what I wanted to do. They accepted everything I sent to them, and if they didn't like it, they would have told me. And I have to say, and I really appreciate what they did. They really blended me in the mix, and I've said this before. Just they really like. I wasn't like. I'm not a big fan of sometimes keyboards and things. Atmosphere doesn't have to be so loud in the mix, but I'm not a big fan of let's submerge it to like this like hardly audible level because, you know, guitars equal aggression, keyboards and are equal, like weakness. I don't know. Believe it or not, some people think that way. And I really think that I think that the way they integrated me into the mix was, and I think really Jorg really did this with the mixing of the instruments. I think it became a whole, and I think did that answer your question, Alex?
Definitely, definitely. And it's funny you mentioned that too. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm a piano player myself and a
Oh,
keyboardist.
really?
And I'll never forget Matt Sorum saying in his Behind the Music documentary with Guns N' Roses, saying, I didn't sign up for this. I thought I was going to be in a badass rock and roll band. What's with the piano? Like, I took a little offense to that line. So
Yeah,
I relate to you in that regard.
yeah.
Yep. Um, when it came to the making of this, though, because I always thought that the music was fairly experimental. When you go from a track like Sinistrum, and then you have a interlude track like Fiend, and then you go into like a track like VOA-D, like in a way, was there like a lot of room to sort of try new things in a way? Or was there sort of like a revolving idea that sort of like surrounded this, whether it would be on a conceptual level or sonic level?
Well, conceptually, and if you're regarding like lyrics and concepts, I've really had nothing to do with that.
Of course.
They sent me the music, and I just laid over it what I wanted them to give me as much as the final mix as what they wanted because I think the way they did it left it so that since I had pretty much the final mix, if I was going to add something, I knew if I was like, I'm not going to like overpower anybody or start throwing in a keyboard melody over a guitar solo. You know what I mean? So I knew what giving me the full mix pretty much gave me an idea. Okay, I know where I can make this work. If you give me parts and you're not really done, and then you're like, oh, we really didn't want the keyboards this heavy, a melody here or something. It's hard for me to tell because you're not complete. But when you give me an almost complete mix, and then you say do what you want to do with it, and that was mainly for like the longer songs, not the interludes. Actually, the interludes, um, I wrote the interludes. The only thing that wasn't written was the last interlude. I guess maybe they thought it was too empty without something else, so they put a guitar over it, but they actually let me play it. And I'm not the greatest of guitarists. Actually kept my guitar riff in the other song that one of the interludes. So yeah, they like, if anything I want to stress with this band, of all the bands I'm in, they gave me free realm to do what I wanted. And I'm not a big fan of like cutting someone off artistically. You know, it just like, oh, play it like that, or play it like, no, this is what I'm feeling. And they could have cut out things I did, but apparently it all worked together. And so,
Well, I wanted to ask this because this is something I've kind of gone back and forth about with keyboards as well, mainly piano as well. Because with a guitar note, you could bend the note, you could harmonize over it, you could get yourself a whammy, you could do all that. But with, a keyboard, an A note is unequivocally an A note, a C note is unequivocally a C note. Do you think that there is, obviously, with synthesizers and electronics and plugins, there's so many things you could expand upon. But when it comes to the melody itself on a keyboard, do you think that is almost a little limited in a way?
you mean within this genre?
Yeah. Or with any genre for that matter.
You can. I'm pretty diverse, Alex, and I'm sure you are too. You can do anything with anything. I mean, I go from heavy techno, like hardcore, like I like gabber, like really heavy stuff. To me, that's like metal. It's so heavy. I just anything. You can throw melodies in there. I'm not sure I'm understanding, because I think you can do anything with anything. And I mean, I'm not big on like labels, like labels, like as far as like a record label, like a lot of times labels like kind of like they're looking for a certain sound, a certain artist for the label. I mean, and things like that. And I know that makes money, but I think that if you limit yourself with anything, it's just, I think everything falls apart
Definitely.
artistically if you're trying to conform to what the label wants. And I mean, the other band I'm in Dimension on, we're like all over the map, and I love that. And I mean, and the labels are like, it's too raw, it's not recorded well, it's not this, it's not high poly. I'm like, yeah, maybe we like it that way. Maybe, it's a style. We're not trying to get the latest plugins. We're not trying to do it our own way. We're not, that's,
Yeah.
so I think with melodies and things and everything, I'm going back to what you said. It depends what you want to do. Depends what you want to do. If you want to please the crowd, like a certain crowd, then do it. You got to do it a certain way, I guess.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know.
When it
Maybe
comes
I'm old and I don't know.
Does every project, is there like a usual method behind the madness that applies to every project, whether it be Adversvm, Evoken, or any project you're in, or is there like a separate mind frame, or is it a completely separate creative process altogether?
Each project, like Evoken right now, they're on a certain path. And I think it's kind of like different from what they did in the last album. So that's where they're headed. They're going a certain way now. And I don't know if I should reveal anything yet, because we're literally writing it right now. So yeah, sometimes like certain members take the helm a little bit more and they lead the way. And if they're writing the song, sometimes I have to follow what they want. All right. And then sometimes if I'm writing the song, they say, do what you want with it. And then show me what you want with the guitar. Because I usually write guitar riffs. I usually don't play them, but I'll write them so I can work with the band and write, so, okay, this is what I'm looking for in guitar. Can you play it good? So I'm more of a writer, Alex. I'm more of because I write literally everything out with all my side projects. Like you can see scores like Mozart. I write everything out, all instrumentation. So that's the way I do it.
Yeah.
So,
well, so you have
I'm rambling.
You have the full theory background, pretty much, right?
I went to school for music. Yeah, I got my degree.
But
in music.
In the end, this is rock and roll and this is heavy metal. So is there like a lot of maybe rule breaking of what you've learned before in a way?
Yeah, and that goes back to like however you want to do it. Throw a melody in. Who cares if that's what you're feeling? I mean, Yeah, break the rules, sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, everybody does.
Yeah, of course.
And usually you're rewarded more for it, because usually when you take risks, it's usually more of the interesting things that you come up with on the fly, rather than things you like programmed, like written down. But usually what I write down is what has been proven to work in practice, and then I come back to it. And being the way I read music, it's just like a thing. Like a lot of people, they just play music, and it's fun and it's great, but I got to read it. I have to read it because that's the way I've been taught, classically trained, call it whatever.
Can you read?
So
Can you read a score and like instantly hear the melody by reading it? Can you do that? Or
mm, if you give me the key, yeah, I can't off. No, I did take sight singing and all sight reading classes and everything, but no, I'm not one of those geniuses.
hey,
I
listen.
wish I was, and I wish I could say I was, but
Yeah.
no.
As somebody who's listened to all of your bands before, I mean, when I've listened to this new Adversvm album, and when I've listened to when I would listen to like the Evoken albums and stuff, I think like you have a pretty damn good genius on your side. So I wouldn't sell
Oh,
yourself short.
thanks, but I try to hit like an emotional like hotspot, and that's where I kind of like, if I don't feel that emotional, and then I probably won't play it. But sometimes I am told what to play, like play it like this, and I do it, because if I didn't write the song, it's not really mine. So I don't want to sound like it's like I'm not telling the truth here. If I'm writing it, it comes from within, and it's just a certain, like a sweet spot I try to hit. Sometimes I've said before, it's like I love French classical music, and artists like Debussy and Fauré, and some of the harmonies they create, like the fifths and some of the sevenths, and it's kind of like jazz chords, kind of, that are a little bit jarring, but a little more like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. Like, and that's kind of like what I try to do. I mean, there's only so many notes, but
Yeah.
I try to hit with the timbres that I pick, and the effects and the harmonies. Harmony's strong with me.
Yeah.
Melody doesn't really lift me too much, but when you add those harmonies, it gives it this richness and fullness. So I don't know. And usually, if the melody is really cool, it's got a great harmony underneath it for me to move me.
Yeah.
So
Well, when it comes, you mentioned that emotional state that you portray in your music, but if you're working on a song for a long period of time, does it maybe make it more difficult to maintain that emotional spark in a way?
I say, like, if we play a song live a lot, sometimes you get, I don't want to say tired of it, but you want to play a new one that you haven't done in a while. So it's never, I don't think that's lost, but it does, like, you hear, like one of my favorite songs is When Doves Cry by Prince. I don't think I ever have to hear it again. I've hit almost like an emotional numb spot with it, not because it's just because I've heard it so much. I need to take a couple of years away from listening to it, and then come back to it, and then, so yeah, I think that answers that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't get tired of it. Just, I think it just, over time, it just kind of, it becomes older, I guess, and you got to take a break from it and come back to it, and then maybe it refreshes you and you feel it a little bit more.
Is when you play the material live, does it almost give you that same feeling as when you first started writing it, or does playing live and writing have completely two separate emotional headspaces, if you will?
It it does bring it back, because of the crowd reaction, and just the experience, provided the mix sounds good. Because sometimes, as a keyboardist, like, sometimes it's just like you're hearing everything, and guitars like in this ear like really loud, and then it kind of destroys the magic. You got to do it, though. You got to do it when you're on stage. So, but uh, we have a great guy that works for a sound engineer, Robert Nelson, and he knows how to make it work. And he makes it all balanced with the monitors and everything. And when that's all in check on stage, it's the magic is there. So
Um, and do you find it maybe easier to come up with musical ideas when you're in the company of your bandmates, or isolation being such great fuel for creativity, you prefer the more isolationist method?
It's a very good question. Um, Definitely isolate, because when I get together with the bands, it's often so loud, and I'm trying to get like this like magic feeling and with the music, the harmonies and everything, and when it's just so loud and jarring, it's just like I can't. Everybody's like "Rah," getting everybody's doing their loud thing, and it's just like it's everybody at once often, and it's kind of, I think usually like in my room with my keys, with my piano. That's usually the best way. I come back with like a recording and I work with it. Usually that's my best way. I do things at where we jam and everything, but the main bulk of what I write is in isolation, where I can kind of zone in on what I have to do and things aren't so loud. So
Yeah, and I'd imagine too, though, inspiration does tend to strike at sometimes the most inconvenient of times, right?
inspiration, inconvenience. What do you mean? Like you hear a song in your head while you're driving and you
Yeah.
can't? Okay, I'm just trying to think. Um, yeah, sometimes. It's not usually like melodies and things for me. It's usually words. I have another project I do where I write a lot of words. So and I'm like, oh, I better write that down before I forget. Like, or it's like a dream. Like if I have a dream, like most people, when they write it down before they forget, because it kind of just dissipates when you get out of that lucid state. And that's another big thing with me, Alex. A lot of things I try to like get into that field of like lucid dreaming, and just I'm big into like this world and the next world, and kind of like where we meet, and I try to make music that kind of bridges the gap between reality and speculation of what could be. So and so a lot of, going back to your question, like, yeah, dreams and things are more of my inspiration, and that's where things come out when I wake up. And
I love what you said there. The bridge between reality and what could be, because I really do like that, because I think there's a lot of contrast demonstrated in your music. So like I think like to have that bridge between sort of fantasy and reality, but also have this sort of atmospheric aspect behind it, makes, whether it is reality or a dream, it makes everything equally real. So I think that's what I find so unique about Adversvm and Evoken.
a lot of the things that I feel I would like to be reality, like a lot of the things, and that's what I try to get through the music, at least the feel of it, the best I can do with 12 notes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today, and most of all, thank you for this awesome new Adversvm album. Is there just anything else you would like to promote with the release of Vama Marga, if you're allowed to say?
all I can say is with Evoken, we are working diligently on a new album when we can get together. And with Dimensionon, we're working on live shows, and our new one's coming out soon. And I did hear from Sasha that he has finished a lot of music for another Adversvm, and I hope he still wants to keep me aboard with him and his band, because I think we work well together, and I'd like to see what the future holds for us.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
I think this is definitely the best Adversvm album. So I think
Thank you.
you definitely need to continue working together. Definitely left me wanting more.
I will if they have me.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Don of Adversvm and Evoken. Be sure to check out the brand new Adversvm album, Vama Marga. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, Alex.